Alabama team needs to improve if they're going to be hoisting up a national championship trophy. As we welcome you in, we get some opening thoughts here. Alabama, South Carolina, 444 yards. Tua Tagovailoa, SEC Offensive Player of the Game, 28-36, 444, 5 touchdowns. The only Crimson Tide quarterback in Alabama history to ever throw for 400 yards and 5 touchdowns in the same game. A lot of positives to take away from that. Devontae Smith had an awesome day. Henry Ruggs had an awesome day. Continues to show you why he's one of the best wide receivers in college football. When you look at Jerry Jeudy, a continuation of what he's been able to accomplish. So you look at Alabama, you look at Landon Dickerson, the offensive lineman of the week. So it's good to see that. Offensive lineman has been a big focus of this football team, as we'll talk about where Alabama can improve. Martin Houston, what was your big takeaway? Alabama gets the win over in Columbia, South Carolina.
This team is good.
Very good.
Very talented on the offensive side of the ball. And I don't think we've even scratched the surface of how good this team can be when they employ all of the weapons that they have. But from a passing standpoint, from a accuracy, yards after catch, running ability as far as wide receivers and all that, unbelievable. A little more concerned with the defense than I was 2 weeks ago. And so when you put it all together, unless I see some things change, I think we're headed for another 14-1 season. And I hate to say it that way. I think we're going to be talented enough offensively to virtually beat anybody in the country. And whoever gets that
so 14-1. Now you're making me a little bit nervous, because if we're going to put 15 total games, that's telling us that you're going to lose in the championship game, or is that?
No, I think it's possible that we could lose before the championship game
and still make it in.
And still make it in. I think we could lose. And Nick Saban sounds like a conflicted coach. He was asked about the lack of runs, and he said, "I'm not going to fix what's not broke." He said, if it's not broke, I'm not going to fix it. And he said, we're utilizing our most talented group. In the exact same answer, he turned around and said, but last year we got so good at it. We were so good like we are now with the RPOs and all of that, that it cost us because we got so good at this that we couldn't do other things well. And when we got to the end of the season, we couldn't do anything else. So it's possible that a loss could happen, Ryan, that makes us make that choice that we're going to commit to the run. Nick Saban said, I don't know if you caught this, Ryan. He started off, he said, we played some cover 6, and then he said they played 6 in the box. And that's a read for pass. In what world, other than the Big 12, is 6 in the box a read to pass the ball? If that doesn't tell you how much Tua Tagovailoa, and people think I'm dogging Tua. Tua is just that good that he changes philosophies. He changes how you approach the game. He's so good, you're like, how do I take that out of his hands? But I'm afraid if we don't, it's going to cost us somewhere down. And I hope it doesn't. I hope we make a commitment to the running game, because we're going to need it somewhere, at least to make people get out of what can stop the RPOs.
All right, so I want to ask a question when we look back at Columbia, South Carolina, with Alabama's win, 47-23, but also use it to kind of slingshot us into the games ahead. Will the RPO game always be there? Will the RPO, because we do look at a big disadvantage, and I know you're an offensive guy, but second and third level, it is a huge disadvantage when a player reads run and it's a passing play. But I'm asking you, going into big games against bigger competition, more athletic competition, stronger guys, when we talk about physical football teams on that side of the football, will the RPO be as effective against those teams as it is against the inferior competition?
Yes and no. And here's what I mean. It will still always, you cannot stop Tua Tagovailoa from doing RPOs. But when we catch an RPO against inferior talent, it goes from the 25 for a 75-yard touchdown pass. When you play against the Georgias and whatever, that's a 15-yard pass, and then you find yourself in the red zone. And in the red zone, the RPO either gets extremely tough or goes away. Okay? So the difference is that when you're playing against the lesser opponents, Henry Ruggs outruns everybody and scores a touchdown. Jerry Jeudy takes it 60 yards. Devontae Smith takes it 60 yards. But in the Clemsons and the Georgias, they can run you down and stop you. And what we saw, Tua still had 300 yards in the national championship game. But when we got to the 20s, they have guys who can show you one read that makes you think it's a pass, and then they can fall back into the passing lane because the fields are tighter, Ryan. It's not as much space. So you don't have as much room for those RPOs to be effective. That's where you need something else. So RPOs will always be there when you have a quarterback that can read it the way Tua does and can throw it with the accuracy because he doesn't need a lot. But when you get into the red zone against the good opponents, you're going to have something else because you're not going to get all of those 60, 70-yard runs that you get against the lesser opponents.
All right, so let's go into the conversation when we look at Alabama Crimson Tide football. What do you think the confidence is for Nick Saban and the offensive staff in running the football? What does it say about this team? And I don't want to make you raise your eyebrows as you just did, but what does it say about this football team that when you're inside, 5-6 yard line, that you don't really have a lot of confidence in your offensive line? Because, see, a lot of the nonverbals, people, they always say 70% of communication is nonverbal, that you read what somebody says without actually the words.
Mm-hmm.
Nick Saban speaks without speaking.
Yes,
that coaching staff speaks without speaking. Is that just something that, maybe they're trying to limit their carries to their backs because they don't want to, they know that they're getting a little short on the depth. They don't have the depth that they've had in the past at running back with some injuries. What does it say about Alabama's team going into that direction?
I think if you ask me the running game issue, it's not just the offensive line, Ryan. When Nick Saban says 6 in the box is a pass read, that tells me you have 5 offensive linemen and you have 0 confidence in that 6th man, which is the tight end. You have 0 confidence when you go into a ball game and your plan is if they show 6 in the box. Every play has 6 in the box. What defense doesn't have 6 in the box?
Do you think Nick Saban might have misspoke?
Well, I would have thought that if he hadn't started off with 8 and went down to 6. He started off with, if he had said 6, 8.
But we're all going to get old at one point, Martin.
Okay.
6 and 7.
He could have spoke. He could have misspoke. I'll give him that.
Okay. Thank you, Nick.
He could have misspoke. But I think it speaks to the fact that we don't have trust and belief in a tight end. And not that they can't run the ball. It's just, it's hard to run the ball, Ryan, when you know you can score the way we can score. And 9 out of 10 plays, we probably can score the way we're scoring. But is that one team out there that's a Clemson or a Georgia or someone that will take that away? And that's what I'm saying. People think I'm dogging this offense, dogging this team when I say we need to run the ball. They're saying I'm old school. They're saying you're old-fashioned, Mark. Football has changed. I know all of that. But why not work on the running game when you know for a fact, Ryan, would it have ever hurt us if we came out against South Carolina, if we came out 2nd and 7 with Tua Tagovailoa and did
No,
an
probably
RPO
not.
on 2nd and 7?
He can make up the gap.
He can make up. So why not take your O-line and get them? You can get good at a passing game in 7-on-7, thud, half speed. You cannot get good in the running game unless you run the ball, unless you practice running, and you cannot simulate it enough in practice. You have to do it. And I'm saying, do it on first down, and then use the RPOs all you want against these inferior guys. But give the running backs, give the linemen. And a lot of people keep saying, Martin, relax. Deontay Brown is coming. I don't want to rest the national championship on Deontay Brown. He's proven that he can make mistakes. We've seen injuries happen. And if this team, with all the talent they have, And all of the linemen they have, Ryan, if they need one guy to come in for us to run the ball, what about all the other guys that can't run it now? So one guy can make a difference. I agree with you. But is that going to be enough? What if he doesn't make it? Are we putting all of it on him?
All right, we're going to talk about the biggest concerns. I mean, we're throwing at the offensive side of the football. But is that the biggest concern? We'll answer that question coming up in a couple of minutes. Alabama tradition. We greatly appreciate all of our affiliates throughout the state of Alabama and even in our neighboring states as they air Alabama Crimson Tide coverage, the present, the past, and the future of Alabama tradition. Mark Houston, Ryan Fowler will continue. We'll answer the difficult question coming up next. Is it the biggest concern around this Alabama football team? That's next on Alabama Tradition. So Nick Saban talking about how it's great for his team, but also needed to run the football. And I think when you average 3 yards per carry, you're never happy with that. You're never happy with that rushing attack. We'll talk a little bit later in the program about where Alabama can correct some of those mistakes. You know, is there a line when you talk about an offensive lineman that maybe you can find a way to adjust? Could you find a way to maybe make a substitution to try to find a way to get Alabama back to maybe that smash mouth attack? I think Alabama's at its best when they bloody people's nose at the line of scrimmage. They find a way to play a little smash mouth football and to be able to kind of dominate, impose your will on those opposing teams. So we'll spend some time kind of looking ahead of that. We'll also look back and we'll break it down. But I've got to ask the question, when you look at their biggest concern, and Jacob, our producer, Jacob, if I could ask you to get that Nick Saban 86 clip ready from the defensive side of the football. This would have been from Saturday night. Defensive play, 86 snaps. Nick Saban talked about 86 snaps. And he said, there's no way that this team can survive a year when you look at 86 snaps. Defensively, 86 snaps is a lot. 86 snaps. When we go back to the game in Tampa, and I think we've got this audio from Nick Saban ready. Listen to this audio clip. This is the best coach in college football, and he's a little concerned about playing 86 snaps on the defensive side of the ball. I think we could take that Nick Saban clip right here on Alabama Tradition, and we could do 9 weeks worth of content. We could literally make 9 weeks worth of content when you look at the University of Alabama and you listen back at Nick Saban. You begin to kind of think about it. You begin to look at what's Alabama and where this team is going. They're concerned a little bit about the 86 plays that they're defending. Nick Saban, I mean, where do you want to start? Where do you want to start in what he said?
Okay, Ryan, first of all, think about this. Is there any different, what did we say cost us the national championship against Clemson the first time? It was Jalen not able to keep more than 3 or 6 play drives. Is there really any difference on the effect on a defense if you're 3 plays and a touchdown or 5 plays and a touchdown? No, there really isn't, right? Because you're still playing the same number of plays. So offensively, that's why I say run the ball on first down, because that's going to keep the clock running a little bit. That's going to slow things down. Because if you give Tua Tagovailoa 3 or 4 pass plays in a drive, it's going to end up in a touchdown. So if you want to get any running plays, you better run it on first down. Not every first down, but intentionally call running plays versus RPO. So that's where you start. The other part is, what is your biggest concern? I think we both agree is our defensive coordinator. And
yeah, I mean, I still have my doubts that Pete Golding is an elite defensive coordinator.
Now take that concern,
okay,
and tell me, how is a coach who is learning to coach defense and coordinate defense at this level, with the number of changes he has to make, having 2 freshman linebackers, missing his 5th-year senior signal caller, and the best linebacker in college football, gone. Now add 2 freshmen to that, so he has to do extra coaching just for his position grouping, and then he only has, at a max, our longest drive was 3 minutes and some change. We were playing 2 and 3 drives, making the same mistakes because even though he can't do it, I don't think he can do it. I'm not convinced he can do it when he has plenty of time.
I got to give Mart Houston credit. Mart Houston and I do a lot of lunch together. Throughout the week, we eat at least once, twice, 3 times. Mart Houston, it was several months ago when Pete Golding was announced the defensive coordinator. Mart Houston and I were having a discussion. And one of the things that he told me, he said, when you look at Pete Golding, because him and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but we both have a little concerns about Pete Golding. We have a little concerns. Not that we over-question him, but we're still trying to see if he's going to be an elite defensive coordinator like Jeremy Pruitt, like Kirby Smart.
We're comparing him to the Alabama standard.
Right.
Any other school, he's a hard worker. He seems to be extremely knowledgeable, but there's an expectation at Alabama.
So Martin Houston said, Ryan, how can we expect that Pete Golding is now going to have more responsibility and get more out of his linebackers? Because we knew that was going to be the challenge for Alabama in that middle linebacker spot. So you're adding responsibility to him. Last time I checked, I'd love for there to be 27 hours in the day, but there's still just 24. Right. How are you going to have to get more out of less opportunity and less time was the concern we had going into the season.
And I think that concern shows up in preparation, because now, Ryan, he has to spend more time during the week coaching his position, because he has 2 freshmen that are the signal callers and the starters versus a 3-year guy and a 5-year guy who knows the system and one who is elite in his play. He didn't have either one of those in these 2 freshmen, even though I think they have the foundation to be really, really good. So his day-to-day job is like huge. Then he's now coordinating a defense. And so think about this, Ryan. When you come in and you have 10 topics to talk about, it's easy to have a show.
Sure.
But what if you only have 2 topics to talk about and you're not sure that one of those topics anybody cares about? And what am I trying to say? Pete Golding has a playbook. Nick Saban has a playbook that when he had Josh McMillan and Mosley, they had access to the entire playbook. when you put 2 freshmen in, you have to limit the playbook. You have to bring it back down and then try to build it back out again. So as we watch him, there may be times, Ryan, that I'm questioning him and I'm going, why don't you do this? It's obvious that you should adjust to this. It's obvious you should blitz in this situation. It's obvious you should do a combo cover. They may not be able to do that with the freshman linebackers and with the players that
Nick Saban, did he not say, he said we simplified everything on that side of the football?
They had to. So now we want Pete Golden to be Kirby Smart, and I understand what I'm critiquing him against. I know I'm being harsh.
Sure.
But Nick Saban says don't settle.
It takes a lot to win a national
don't
title.
Settle. That's right. You either, it doesn't matter that we lost those players. We still have to go out. We still have to go out and play.
Well, nobody's going to feel sorry for you.
Absolutely
nobody,
not.
because you're Alabama and you picked on them for the last 13 years. They're not going to send get well cards to Tuscaloosa, I can promise you.
No, they're not. So we have to figure out. He's trying to do more with less. In other words, he's trying to create a defense that can be at the level that other guys had. And I'm not talking about, you and I both said, 10 points is not realistic. A 17-point game is about the equivalent of a shutout 10 years ago.
Right.
It's a different era. 17 points.
Sure.
But it's not the 17 points. We didn't give up with 17 points. It was the fact that we gave up 31 first downs, 86 plays, made mistakes, looked out of position, didn't adjust. I mean, it was just things like that. But how much of that is he can't blitz? He can't adjust. I don't know. Ryan, have you thought about this? 4 out of the 5 people in the middle of our offensive line were playing high school football last year. I don't know if you thought about this. With LeBron raised down, Eboigbe, Dale, Harris, and Lee. The only guy that has any college experience against more than one SEC school is Raekwon Davis. That's the middle of your defense. He has his hands full as a defensive coordinator.
He does. And I think that's the part that you give him a break. You give him a little bit of a mulligan. And then you add Jordan Battle back there. If that's another freshman. I mean, they may be breaking records with playing freshmen now. The future is bright.
Yes.
All I can say is you better get Alabama, and you better get them early.
You better make this the year.
Because this group, how things have changed. A couple of weeks ago, we were talking about 2020 could be the year of the drop-off for Alabama. You're losing all these players. Tua Tagovailoa. It may not drop off. It may just shift sides for a little bit, right? It may just go to the other side that we've accustomed to. All right, biggest concern for Alabama, then we'll go to break and we'll come back. We'll wrap up some other things. We'll talk about Southern Miss. What is your biggest concern for this football team? Is it, and I can give you, Pete Golding, defensive coordinator, offensive line we've discussed so far. Is there something else out there that we could discuss on the other side, or is those two one of your biggest concerns? What is your biggest concern? Simplified.
I would say the tight end, the inline blocker, how they address that is a big concern, and the defense is a big concern. I think that we're going to see the offensive running game come about because Nick Saban keeps saying it. He keeps saying it. So I believe that he's going to get to it. And I think we're going to finally see Sark, as we move through the season, do what he said he would do as the coordinator. So defense is my concern.
Defense wins championships, correct?
Name one team that's won a national championship in the last two, in this new era of throw it all over the field that everybody tells me, Martin, you're old school. Tell me one national champion that did not have a running game and or a great defense or both.
So you're telling me we're going to have to try to win without both?
Yes, at this point.
At this point, what we know about this.
Do both.
All right, so Nick Saban said Alabama factor. We've got to reestablish the Alabama factor. What is that? We'll discuss it coming up in a couple of minutes right here. Mark Houston, Ryan Fowler on Alabama Tradition right here throughout the network on Alabama Tradition with Mark Houston, Ryan Fowler. My voice went silent.
Touchdown, what a play.
You know,
Broke another tackle, he jumped over another guy. Pretty good. Well, I always tell him not to do that. So, I just think it could be dangerous. But he's got a good feel for it, so.
all right, Martin Houston, I've got a couple of questions for you. Have you ever heard of anybody out there like George Teague, Antonio Langham in practice? Any of those guys you went up against, you just said, you know what, I'm going to avoid the contact. I'm going over the top. Did you ever do that?
No.
What would you?
I would say that would not have been one of the weapons in my
repertoire?
Yeah, no, it did not exist. I would say that I did I may have actually hurdled a guy or two, but I promise you was because they were laying on the ground and I was walking off the field.
But Martin said Martin's philosophy was, why run over them when you could just run through them, right?
Quickest way to the goal line was a straight line.
That's right. So, Martin, when you listen to Nick Saban, Najee Harris did have a great run, and I think the one thing that you got to look at is getting these backs involved in a lot of different ways, and no doubt it adds to your offensive playbook, and they're putting so many things on film that these opposing defensive coordinators, this has got to be a nightmare for you look at Alabama, because I don't know what and because at some point that your rushing attack is going to get cranked up, or at least that's what you're hoping. So as a defensive coordinator, if you're Dave Aranda or you're somebody at any other school, they're looking at it going, hey, how are we going to slow down this Alabama team? So when you look at it, talk about Najee Harris and Brian Robinson, what those guys were able to get involved in other ways in getting involved as they did on Saturday.
Well, a couple of things is, first of all, Najee, what an unbelievable play, because to me, that play, if Najee Harris plays like that, I'm okay with the hurdle. Because the first
So is Nick Saban, he even said it.
Yeah, the first one he ran through the contact. Then he hurdled a guy because the guy went for his feet. The times I've had the issue with Najee is he's running, he's in a pile of people. There's people on both sides, and there's a guy in front, and he hurdles the guy, and if that guy ever hits him and spins him, then the other guys can hit him. When it's one-on-one, you're in an open field like that, man, if you got a guy that's going to be scared to hit you up high, go over him like he did. That's okay. And then he ran through the last tackle. So Najee Harris showed everything in that one play. And that's what we've been waiting on. And I will say this. I give it to Sark. Maybe they're going with this New England Patriots approach. Tom Brady is so good, Ryan, that it doesn't matter if you have a running game, okay? He is so good because he knows how to, he can complete every pass. He knows how to bring the running backs into the game with the short pass and the screen pass. And therefore, if you stop one thing, he's still able to get to the others. And do we have a Tom Brady level quarterback in college? That's probably a yes. And so maybe Alabama doesn't go to the running game. But only reason I'm saying about the running game is because of what Nick Saban and Sarkisian told us they were going to do. If they come out and say, listen, we're going to take what the defense gives us all year, and we're going to put in a passing game that is equivalent of a short, like a long handoff. And that's how the running backs are going to get their touches, but it's going to be like we did Saturday, swing passes, screen passes, crosses, wheel routes. I'm okay with that. But that's not what we've been told. We've been told that we're going to have a play-action passing game, and we've been told we're going to run the ball, and then we're going to build off of the run. That's all. Tell me what you're going to do, Coach. And I believe in the coaching staff, and I'll trust them. I'm just saying they're not doing what they said they were going to do yet.
Smart Houston, I'm Ryan Fowler. This is Alabama tradition. A lot of things that we're talking about. We've got to begin to look at Southern Miss. Okay, out of all the things and I feel like that we need to move ahead. But let me stop right here for just a minute. The Alabama factor, and I'm not trying to be a comedy show, but Nick Saban talked about reestablishing the Alabama factor and reestablishing the Alabama way of doing things. Is the Alabama way of doing things missing field goals and shanking punts? I mean, is that what he was talking about? Because Nick Saban made it a point of emphasis throughout the spring and the summer and media days and press conferences. It was all about the Alabama factor. Is that what he was talking about? Because we return right, missed a PAT, missed a field goal attempt from 37 yards, and then we shanked a 14-yard punt.
Did you see what the record? Did you see how many kicks we've missed?
98, 99?
90.
Oh my. Come on, we can get to 100. Come on, we can do it.
Yeah, I hope we don't get there with extra points. I'm okay. I even text you, Ryan. Is it possible that Tua may be pulling his hand back or something? Something that we don't notice. Some little tension. Well, first of all, the smartest coach in the world sometimes.
Bart, if you were the holder, look at these kickers.
Ryan, sometimes that makes me question whether we have the smartest coach in America.
I'll be like Charlie Brown out there.
I mean, I'm telling you, I'd be Lucy all over, baby. If I was Tua Tagovailoa and you asked me to hold a kick, man, I wouldn't care if it was with Adam Vinatieri.
Surely we've got somebody out there that can hold.
But all those 5 stars, you telling me you can.
Than $1 million hand, $15 million, $20 million hand,
in an 18th national championship on the line. I mean, I hate to tell you, Ryan, and this sounds really bad.
Oh no!
But if I was playing against this team, I'd take a 15-yarder. I tell a young man, listen, you're probably not.
You mean
you're not
in rough Tua Tagovailoa?
I wouldn't just rough him. I'd give him a concussion, son.
My heavens, Mark Houston.
Dude, do you understand that man is costing people $4 and $5 million a year when he beats them. Some coach is going to lose his job this year after Tua. And if I'm sitting there going, does Saban really have him holding the kick? Son, you're not going to play, but I got a job for you.
But that's been a trend with Alabama. A.J. McCarron did it.
I know. I said the same. I haven't changed. I still don't get it. I would have Tua Tagovailoa wouldn't hold but one time against me. I promise you. I'd have a guy that's never played, fifth-year senior, that's traveling for the first time, go and just hit him.
Let me take the reverse role of this. How much of, because maybe the hold has been the issue, and you want to give the guy confidence a little bit by putting Tua Tagovailoa out there. In other words, you're saying, okay, hey, this is my best hands, man. I mean, in other words, remove that mental block that you may have.
That could be it. It doesn't make sense. We see that Mac Jones is the backup holder. Why not just put him out there to begin with? So maybe it is he's trying to give them confidence. But I'm joking by blaming it on Tua, by the way, because Tua wasn't here for the other 78 kicks we missed the previous 10 years, or 11 years. So it's been an issue, and I don't understand. I think it's the intimidation factor. I'm actually going to have a guy on my show and ask him about the mental side of kicking, and can a coach be so intimidating that it gets in the kicker's mind?
I thought about it because you wonder about, you got to handle those kickers different. Mm-hmm. Their mentality is just their approach. And if they get it in their head, and Nick Saban has tried the false confidence thing, everything's going to be okay. We've heard that for a couple of years. But I think last year, Alabama missed 9 PATs. 9 PATs. The rest of the other 13 teams combined missed 4. So everybody outside of Alabama missed 4. And we missed 9. So we went even beyond doubling it. All right, so here we go. Southern Miss, Alabama. When you look at Southern Miss, the experts in the desert have this at about a 39-point difference according to those guys. If you're Nick Saban, Martin Houston, what do you do to try to get some confidence back? I don't know if you stop at the 30-yard line, let them kick a field goal, if you try to punt from a comfortable zone. But what do you do if you're Alabama? We'll answer that question in 3 minutes right here on Alabama tradition with Mark Hughes and Ryan Fowler.
If you need handyman work done around your home, let Hall & Sons do the
I-
work for you. They specialize in building privacy fences, excavating, pressure washing, landscaping, grass cutting, bush hogging, digging ditches, and driveway work. Estimates are touchdown. Do you believe it? 80 yards.
Team this week, it's a very explosive team in Southern Miss. They score a lot of points. They do a lot of things on offense that obviously, you know, they're in the top 10 in the country or whatever in pass offense, 347 yards a game. That's because they got good skill players. They got good scheme. They dish the ball all over the perimeter and make you play in space all the time, which we need to do a good job of. The quarterback does a good job of executing. Defensively, they're very active, on defense, try to create a lot of stunning and moving. And this is one of the most explosive teams that we've played on special teams. This returner, number 2, is a punt return for a touchdown, 2 kickoff returns for touchdowns already this season. And they're ranked nationally, in all those areas. So this is not a time for us to be thinking that we don't have to prepare well and work to focus on the things that we need to do to play well in our preparation for, this game.
All right, so Nick Saban talking about Southern Miss and Alabama, 39-point difference according to the experts in the desert. I got to go back and let this sink in just for a couple of minutes. When you look at Southern Miss, Mark Houston, let me pretend that you're Nick Saban here for just a couple of minutes. If you're Nick Saban going up against a team that you know that you're going to win, now Nick Saban doesn't want us to say this, but let's pretend just for a couple of minutes. You know that you're going to beat Southern Miss. What would you try to do to build confidence in some of the areas that we know is lacking, some of the areas that needs to be fixed? What would you do? How would you fix it? What would you fix going into a team that you should beat, by 3 or 4 touchdowns?
I think it starts with what is your game plan, and I think you set a very specific game plan. What are the things we need to work on? You hope that they come in from an offensive standpoint, that they come in with a lot of formations and give you a lot of looks, Ryan, so that you can get your guys working. You hope they're not very vanilla. From an offensive standpoint, you set your game plan about what you want to be. Nick Saban said they want to run the ball. This week you come in and you call runs intentionally. You limit the RPOs. You work on the things. You already know how good Tua is as an RPO player. Don't focus on that so much. Develop him, still keep him engaged, but develop his progression reads that they told us about. Develop the play action game, which you can't have the play action game unless you have the running game. So that's the things that you do. And literally, you do hope that your team has some opportunities for you to work on field goals.
So when you look at this team, the things that we've discussed here today, is it fixable? Because let's go with the offensive line. Let's discuss that for a couple of minutes. There's no way that you can convince me right now that this offensive line is playing at their best performance. There's just no way. There's too many.
Who is the offensive line, Ryan?
Well, I don't think we know.
Thus the problem. We don't know who the best 5 are.
And
We're
you're going
3
into
games.
week number 4.
Week number 4, and you and I promise you, if Chris Owens, and I hate singling out young men when I'm going to say something negative because I've been where he's at. But if Chris Owens is the best offensive center that we have, we are not going to win a national championship. I will tell you that unless he gets significantly better. And I wonder, are they not making moves because they only want to make one more move when Deontay Brown comes back? Is that possibly why they're not? But yes, this offensive line can be. Think about chemistry. When you're doing chemistry, Ryan, and you're putting all those different ingredients in there.
I didn't do well at chemistry.
You didn't, but H2O. You drop one of those molecules, and all of a sudden you got something that'll kill you if you drink it.
Right, sure.
One molecule. And Well, it's the same thing when you talk about chemistry of an offensive line. It is that important how you place the pieces and when you place the pieces and where you place them. And I think that Deontay Brown coming back is going to move Landon Dickerson to center. And then they're going to have either Neal or Ekiyor at guard. I think Womack's going to be a guy that they use to rest and to think. And I think you're going to also see him at tight end some.
At that extra tackle. All right, but let me also throw out another possibility. I think another scenario is you take Emil Ekiyor and move him to center.
Yes.
And this is just not arguing your point, but I mean, there's a lot of different combinations. But you've got to decide which one's your 5, and let's roll with it. Landon Dickerson could also move there to the one of the guard spots and let Emil Ekiyor, when he comes back, you could let him play the center position as well, and then also keep the consistency there.
And that's what I think they're work. I think they don't want to make too many different moves because I think it may be that they think Emil is the center or Dalcourt.
It may be.
Don't be surprised if Dalcourt doesn't.
Dalcourt is the future at that position.
Don't be surprised if he doesn't get himself into
and that may be all part of account of it too, because you're looking at it, you're going, okay, if Emil Ekiyor is a redshirt freshman, then if you put him here, then you'll try to. I mean, there's a lot of different scenarios. I mean, that's why I say there's so much talent. They'll find an answer.
I think so.
All right, running backs. Do you have the same level of confidence? Because I thought we saw a little bit, even though they were not showing up, but you saw some confidence being built in the running backs on Saturday, even though it was not, between the tackles, they were picking up some positive yardage on the outside.
Well, actually, the running backs picked up a lot of yards. If we had ran the running backs, they averaged probably 6-7 yards a carry on Saturday. We just didn't run them a lot. And to me, I've heard people say, man, I don't think these guys are as good as Damian Harris and Josh Jacobs. I don't think they're the same style back. I think they are Derrick Henry style backs. And Derrick Henry was an average running back if you gave him 8 to 10 carries a game. Average at best.
But he wore you down.
But if you gave him 15 to 20, he got going. You gave him 20 to 25, he was a machine. He was unstoppable. And I think that's what you have in these two type backs. I think they need 15 to 20 carries to get into a groove. People say they should be good on the first one. Well, Tua should be good on the first one. No. Quarterbacks get into grooves, running backs get into groove. I think these two running backs can get the job done. And I think that Keelan Robinson is going to be that change-up, kind of that Reggie Bush type player that Sark had at USC.
All right, give me your prediction. On the other side, we're going to go in and promote a couple of different things. Connect with Mark Houston and I. We do a lot of different things on Facebook. You can connect with us there. Mark Houston, do a simple search for Alabama Tradition. We're also activating some Twitter accounts. We're going to be doing that in the coming hours. So make sure you connect with us, Alabama Tradition, on the different social platforms and also on YouTube. If you want to see the faces of Mark Houston and myself, you could do that. We also want to say a big thank you to all of our affiliates. We've had a tremendous reception. Mark Houston and I threw this together, and we started preparing of how we were going to do it, and it's been pretty amazing with the reception that we've been out there. When you look at what we've said, what we're going to do, we're going to connect you back to T-Town. We're going to make that connection a lot stronger. And for those out there that are listening in an area, we're on the app where we originated at Tuscaloosa Tide 100.9. So there's always that option. But we would love for you to go to your affiliate or the local station there and say, hey, this is a possibility. Drop us a Facebook, a Twitter message, and we can get you more information on that. Let's also congratulate Nick Saban, elected to the Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame. How about that?
That's pretty cool.
The enemy, from that state's perspective, getting inducted into the Louisiana Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I mean, of course, if you look at what he did in the time he was.
Chris, Mississippi said,